We're live. Are we live? We're live. We're live on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. LinkedIn is doing its thing again.
Oh,
Darius, LinkedIn doesn't like us.
why is going live to LinkedIn so hard?
When I click go live, my expectation would be I go like I'm live. Like people can
You'd think
watch
that.
me anywhere I am in the world. And I click it and it just says something went wrong. I'm so sorry, LinkedIn. I know we have our huge audience base and our fan base is on LinkedIn for these live streams, but today it's just not their day. How are you doing, buddy? Happy Wednesday. What's happening?
Pretty good. It's been busy. I've been making a contribution to the Next.js repo, updating our Mux example there. It's been really fun. Nice fresh little project.
Okay? And is this the Node SDK update or?
Yeah, that's right. Our Node SDK is going to version 8. So we're going around checking out all our examples in the wild. And yeah, I mean, like the one in the Next.js repo, still using version 7. So I started updating that. Then I realized that we're still using the pages directory. So I figured we could update to the app router. And then I realized that we're still using API routes. And so we could use server actions. I don't know. New Next.js is fun.
New Next.js is fun. New Next.js is also very different than what I have been used to. I started writing code in Dreamweaver a long time ago. So things move fast. The fact that we could even do this is pretty amazing. This like I'm just talking to you. You're in Chicago. I feel like an old man right now. But anyway, we have some new Next.js stuff to talk about today. What's happening new in some of the newer iterations of Next.js, Next.js 14. We've run into some of this before, just with some of the way that we write our code internally here at Mux. Some challenges with how Next.js functions under the hood, and how do we handle when we're seeing data that's not updating as expected, or these moments where we are trying to get something live and it's not going live. And so I think there was a lot of like, at least for me, like fist at the cloud, like yelling to nobody. I'm imagining that was what you were looking like too. I don't know, but maybe we should go through some of that today. We could talk about what some of those challenges look like in Next.js. By way of example, we still have if you missed our previous 2 streams, we still have not shipped our TV page as promised. So we can use that as an example of ways that we can do some data fetching and tackle some of those issues in Next.js to make sure that we're seeing what we should be seeing and it's working like it should. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I think Darius, I'm gonna hand it over to you, the code machine, so that you
Cool.
can get going.
Yeah,
Here.
so this is week 3 of building this page, MuxTV. When Dave and I are live, come on back. When Dave and I are live, we will show up on this page, mux.com/TV, as well as YouTube and theoretically LinkedIn. And we've been building it using the latest and greatest in Next.js. So server components and client components and everything. Quick recap, if I can find my cursor. There it is, of what we've got here. We've got a page, which got, that nav bar at the top. We've got this hero that says MuxTV. And then we've got kind of this grid component. All of this is coming from a component library that we use here at Mux called devx components react. And this grid component is where all the action is. And we've got a Mux player there in the middle, right there. Actually, I wonder if I give it a refresh. Oh, look at that. We're live.
Inception.
Awesome. Yeah, so pretty basic. This is all because by default, Next.js 13 and 14 in the app directory run on the server. This is all running in the server. This is all server components. All this code, none of it shipped to the client, except for Mux Player. Because we have use client here at the top, all of this code gets sent to the client. So this is the only code running on the client. Everything else is on the server. it takes a while to wrap your head around this whole some code stays here, some code stays there. But once you get the hang of it, like for me personally, I found that I had maybe like a rough month of trying to wrap my head around it all. But once I got it, I kind of got it, and it felt really, really good. Like I promise, this all starts making some sense. You've got two computers. Where does the code run? What stays difficult though, and I think what we're talking about today is not where does the code run, but where do you fetch your data and how do you cache that data? So we've got code running on the server. We could fetch data on the server. We've got code running on the client. You can fetch data on the client. And each of those have massively different implications with regards to caching and so on and so forth. I think that would be better explained by an example. What do you think, Dave?
Let's just go. What are you talking
Let's
about here, Dar? You gotta jump in and show us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna fetch some data here on the server. Fetch some data here on the server and use it to generate this page. Currently, we've got this live stream playback ID hard coded, but if we fetch that live stream ID from Mux rather than just have it hard coded here, we also get some other data with it, including, most importantly, whether the stream is live or not. You noticed when we first joined the screen shared, this was kind of in this weird, kind of ugly, like it's not working state. Um, what I want to do now is hide the player if Dave and I aren't live. And we can do that by asking Mux, hey, are Dave and I live? If so, show the player. If not, show an offline state. So what I'm going to do here is fetch some data from Mux. We're going to start with, let's build a little function up here. Let's call it get live stream. It'll be an async function because we're fetching data. That happens sometimes rather slowly. And we're going to use the new Mux V8 node API. Import Mux from Mux node. We're going to create ourselves a new Mux client. This is reading my credentials from the environment. So I've got a token and a secret, and those get loaded up into the client when you say new Mux. So now I can talk with Mux and have super secret conversations. I'm going to ask Mux, hey, what's new with that live stream? Oops. Pressure of coding live video.livestreams.retrieve. And where am I getting all this? The Mux SDK does have documentation. And also we have docs.mux.com/API reference. Because I've spent some quality time here, I know that if I want to retrieve a live stream, this is I pass it a live stream ID and I get all this data back. So all of these methods are also bundled up into our SDK, which is what we're doing over here. Retrieve, and then I want to pass live stream ID, which I have stored in config. Live stream ID is that guy right there. Whoa, no, don't leave. Cancel. Stay. Where'd it go? So we are using VS Code's live share feature. I've got an instance of this whole repo running on my computer, and then I've got it here in my browser so we can look at the code and the browser side by side without me having to share my desktop and everything. Live share seems to have lost.
What happened there?
No folders open. Look at this. Live share seems to have lost my what's it called? Copy link. My mux.com repo. So we're gonna plop that back in. And we're back. No idea what happened there. Look at it catch up. Cool. All right, we're back. Where were we? Yeah. So we've got Mux, and we're asking Mux, hey, what's new in what's new with this live stream. And for that, I've got a constant live stream ID. Leave from /config. Cool. Live stream equals. Wait, why is it jumping around like that? Following D each of those. Okay. So I think because we're using live share, it's following the cursor from my other instance. Wow. This
Ooh.
seemed like a really good idea, Dave.
I think there's still something here. I wonder if you could turn that off. Can you like maybe do a command
The
shift
follow?
P, turn off
Can I
follow or something?
turn off the follow. What if I just, what? Oh my gosh, I did it. Cool.
Experts. As you can tell, we're expert streamers here.
You only get this kind of high quality content from live.
Like I said, I was just suggesting everybody gently depress that live subscribe button on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. You get this kind of stuff every week.
Yes.
Cool. We have a live stream, and every live stream has multiple playback IDs. So one or more playback IDs, actually probably 0 or more. So we're going to ask the asset, hey, you got any playback IDs? And let's just console log at this point. Page, and I was really hoping to have my terminal here. Enter to type. Nice. I am fetching the playback IDs from the live stream and console logging them. You got this, buddy? Next.js 14 is a lot faster than Next.js 13. Ah, look at that. We got a syntax error. So this is an asynchronous function. We need to make this component async as well. Oh, that's right. Just remove that for now. Look at it. Playback IDs, first try.
Yeah, no running into any issues on the stream. Cool. All right, so it's coming through. What's the catch here? Is there anything with this actual call that we're going to be running into any trouble with making it across different sessions or anything like that?
Well, Dave, I'm glad you asked. There's a couple different things that we need to kind of be aware of when calling the Mux API like this. Some things that could go wrong. Not the least of which is caching, which I promise we are going to get to. But first, let me get back to where we were with the player here. The first thing is not all live streams have playback IDs. And that's kind of represented here in TypeScript. You can see playback ID array or undefined. So first off, we need to check if no playback IDs, we call a not found. So we throw a 404. Now let's check to see if there's any public playback IDs to make sure that we can actually play this playback ID. Playback IDs .find. We know whether or not a playback ID can be exposed to the public by looking at the policy. Public. And then finally, we definitely have a playback ID. Playback ID.id. Hey, Mux, what's up with this live stream? Does it have any playback IDs? Are any of those playback IDs public? If so, stick them in a player. All right. This looks really simple. And at the end, like once you understand what's going on, it kind of is. But there is, I think, one thing that you will not understand unless you really understand what's going on with Next.js. And that is anytime that we retrieve data, we need to think about caching. Next.js has docs, this incredible document with a whole bunch of explanations of how their caching works. And this is a document that every single Next.js developer who's using AppWriter definitely needs to read. If you read this document, you'll understand that this page here, this whole page here, runs once when you say next build. And we get the live stream status once when the page builds and never again. That's a problem because the live stream status actually changes over time. The next thing we can do, so we can tell Next.js, hey, why don't you fetch a live stream status maybe every, I don't know, every minute, every 60 seconds. How about that? What this says is, hey, Next.js, run this function, run this page every minute. Revalidate the cache every minute. Which is better, but if we go online somewhere in the middle of a minute, it'll still take our viewers like 30 seconds to actually like log on to the live stream. So we can probably do one better. Oh, one last thing that I should mention. Said you need to read this document and understand it inside and out. 4 ways you can fetch data on the server with fetch, on the server with third-party libraries. If you read this document, you'll find that fetch gets automatically cached the way that I was talking about, and third-party libraries don't. So we need to do one more thing and tell Next.js, hey, this is a data fetch, and I want you to remember this until I tell you to forget it. That comes from import cache from React. Cool. What are we doing here? Hey, Mux, what's new with the live stream? Hey, Next.js, remember that answer. Hey, Next.js, forget that answer every 60 seconds.
Do we have to care about where this gets stored in any way, or does it just happen all under the hood?
Where like the cache is stored and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're using Next.js, chances are you're aware of Vercel. Vercel is the company that, for the most part, maintains the open source project of Next.js, and they also own infrastructure. If you're running Next.js on Vercel's infrastructure, they're going to be storing this data in their data cache. So they're running this all automatically for you. They store it for you all automatically. If you're building your own infrastructure, you probably already know the answer to the question because that's pretty complicated. There are other providers that run Next.js as well. But yeah, this is also, I don't like using this word very much, but it kind of really does apply here. This is just kind of a lot of magic done by Next.js. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I would just, if that data is critical to our application working as we expect it to, I just want to make sure that that magic is happening, and I can trust that it's going to work as expected. But it sounds like the provider here is the one that is taking care of all of that.
Theoretically, yeah. But if you don't understand the nuances of, hey, you need to wrap third-party data fetching and cache, hey, you need to revalidate your data every once in a while, then this is gonna catch you. Next.js developers definitely need to read that document about caching and understand it inside and out if they're going to be developing and deploying to production. This is like one of the, I'd say, biggest foot guns of server components, of the app directory, of this new way of doing things in Next.js. And the next team, as far as I'm aware, is aware, and they're definitely working on this and working to improve the developer experience. This is probably, I'd say, the kind of rawest corner of Next.js. Yeah, that's kind of the intro there. You want to keep going? We can actually do a little bit better than what we have here.
I do. I want to ask you one other follow-up question there that's on my mind, related to the visibility into what you currently have in cache. Is there any current way that you've found for like identifying, how stale the code is or the data is that you currently have, or that you can flush that cache out? What's been your strategy working in production with this data fetching?
Yeah, really good question. This page is generating there's a couple different places where stuff gets cached and a couple different places where you can check the cache. This page is a server component. This server component gets sent to the client. You can actually inspect in the client in the network tab server component payloads and see what their caching headers are. Maybe. Request types. I believe they're coming over XHR. We're seeing a whole bunch of packets from this player, from this live stream as well. What I would highly recommend to anybody looking to kind of learn more about whether your server components are cached, I was listening to Syntax FM, our good friends over at Syntax FM, and they were talking about RSC dev tools. This is a really cool way to inspect actual like server components that are being sent to your client and being able to find out like what kind of headers they have, what they look like, what kind of headers they have, how long are they supposed to be cached in the infrastructure. But that's not the only place things are cached. Like I said, Vercel is providing infrastructure for a lot of Next.js users. Vercel has a data cache, and you can inspect and flush that data cache. So for example, this data is never going to make it to the client. This stays purely on the server. So I need a place on the server to inspect this. For that, I would go to my Vercel dashboard and see what I can see in the data cache. And that's a product that's, I believe, in beta and improving with time. So kind of gaining more visibility, stuff like that.
Cool. Well, why don't we continue down the path of, what do you have in mind for improving this?
So what happens, Dave, if you and I go live somewhere in the middle of the 60 seconds? Or worse, what happens if we don't go live for a month? This is still calling Mux every minute, assuming we have viewers visiting our page constantly. This is calling Mux every minute saying, hey, anything new? Anything new? Anything new? Anything new? Hey, Mux, you up? That's a lot of traffic. That's going to be incurring billing for your serverless functions. Your infrastructure is constantly calling Mux, and Mux is constantly calling back. And we don't want to bother Mux like that. Mux, like many providers, have an answer to this question: webhooks. Instead of us asking Mux, hey, is anything new? We can just say, hey, Mux, let us know if anything's new. Hit us up. And for that, we can go in the Mux dashboard. Actually, let me show you what's up. Concepts, listen for webhooks, overview. We can go into the Mux dashboard, the little webhooks toggle, and we can say, hey, notify this URL when something's new. You can read all about this at the Listen for Webhooks guide on the Mux docs. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an endpoint that listens for Mux webhooks. We're going to build an actual API where we can have Mux call us. I'm going to write that API here. We're going to call it Mux webhook route.ts. Now, in Next 13 and 14, if you say, app TV page.csx, this is going to put a page at, /TV/ here we go, localhost /TV. If I say route, instead of putting a page there, it's going to put an API endpoint there. So we want to write an API endpoint that's going to listen to Mux communicating, and Mux posts to these API endpoints. So we are going to write a function called post, and that function is going to receive a request, standard object, standard HTML request. What's that request going to have? It's going to have a body. Body equals how you do this? I didn't actually take notes on this, Dave. Oh, thank you. I was wondering why that wasn't working. Yeah, cool. And this body is going to have body.type, I believe. And that type is going to be our type of webhook. So we send all sorts of webhooks for all sorts of events. Every time you create an asset, anytime that asset's ready, look at all this stuff. What we're really interested in is these live stream webhooks. Anytime a live stream switches state from, for example, idle to active to disconnected, stuff like that, we're going to receive a webhook. So let's head back here, switch body type, case I'm interested in video.livestream.active, video.livestream.idle, and video.livestream.disabled. So if Mux sends me a webhook with that, and if event.data.id equals, whoa, not event, body.data.id equals live stream ID, then what we want to do is say revalidate path /TV. What am I doing here? And then I want to tell Mux, hey, this all went well. Turn message. Okay. What am I doing here? Mux is going to call this. It's going to post something. It's going to say, hey, your live stream is active. Hey, your live stream is idle. Hey, it's disabled. And if the live stream that Mux is telling me about is the live stream from, import automatically. Import live stream. There we go. Then revalidate path. And what does this say? What is revalidate path saying? It's saying, instead of revalidating this every 60 seconds, just go ahead and revalidate only when I call this function. So this is our way of only clearing the cache when Mux tells us that something's new.
This is really cool. This is like kind of turns some of the state management stuff on its head a little bit. Where typically you might have like a persistent data store that listens to your webhooks or listens to really any data that's coming in from a third party, and you would want to capture that somewhere. You'd want to sync it, and maybe we would have a CMS in place that would know that whether or not that live stream is active or not, because we've received that webhook, we've updated that data store to, I don't know, capture that status. But this kind of removes that in a way and skips the step of even having to save that, but still keeps you up to date with as minimal requests as possible. That's pretty.
Can I add one more thing to this, Dave?
Yes, you may.
We open the stream up with kind of an ugly spinner over here, and I promised to fix that. And you know what? I never did. I kind of want to add one more little piece of code here to actually respond to the live stream status. So we have a live stream object here, and that live stream object has a status. You can see, I run this fresh, the live stream is active. And if it's active, we want to show Mux player, right? What I thought about here is that if it's not active, I want to show kind of a loading indicator. So if live stream.status equals active, I want to show this player. Otherwise, I want to show a loading indicator here. Something like this. For now, let's test this by saying false, which will force this loading indicator to show. And then
we'll probably be like, if we're not live, hopefully it's not loading for a week, right? So we'll want to go like,
let's make this a little
offline, or see you next time, or out to lunch, or something like that.
Ooh, I like that. I also want this to be like, this is kind of awkwardly short, so I want this to be the same dimensions as the video, maybe like width, full aspect of video. Let's make it charcoal, some white text, and then flex. Want that text centered. Now how we doing? Give it a save and off to lunch. Nice.
I'm clearly hangry. I skipped lunch today.
No, did you miss lunch?
Cool. All right, this is looking good. So we need to make sure that what we're doing here, just in summary, we're checking the status of the live stream. If it's live, of course, we want to view it. And if it's not live, probably get some different feedback than a player with an error. So we're giving a little bit of a message that just says, yeah, we're not here. We'll be back soon. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And because we listen to that status change, when that status changes, this function gets called again and we swap in the player for our status message. So this is all one big, nice, well-oiled machine.
All right. One thing I haven't thought about yet is how do we handle this player if it's live or active when we visit the page and then it goes to idle?
Yeah, you're right. I don't actually handle that case because once we hand the page off to the client, then the server's done. All this server component stuff that we just talked about, all this data fetching on the server, it's done. We're just purely on the client. So we would need some sort of mechanism on the client to refresh the page every 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Just a whole different world of data fetching.
Yeah. So that's kind of the difference here that we're talking about with server fetching. It does kind of happen that once when the page is loading, and then the client side can take over from there. If there needs to be any sort of real-time updates, you can do that with client-side fetching. You can also, potentially implement some server-sent events or data, some data that does come in and get streamed into the client that gets handled that way as well. But for this case, we probably would implement like just a check, like a client-side check to just determine whether or not that status has changed and turn off the show, I guess, turn off the TV. So we can show you some different ways in client-side to how we would implement some client-side data fetching. And it really is kind of probably, if you've done client-side fetching before in React, it's probably pretty similar to what you have been used to. There are some considerations, of course, that you need to keep in mind when implementing that. But why don't we take a look with another feature that we talked about last week, which is what we built for watching understanding the number of viewers for a particular live stream. Our last week when we built this, it was on the server, and so we made that call on the server. We got the number of viewers, and then the only way that number was going to update was if you reloaded the page and made that call again on the server. That wasn't gonna work. We want to have that number update in real time so that it doesn't stay at 0 for forever. I will sit here and watch it until that ticks up to a 1 or a 2 for our live stream. So I think we could go ahead and take an approach here and implement that on the client side and see what that ends up looking like. How does that sound to you?
Yeah. Let's see how many people are watching.
Okay, well, it's at least hopefully going to be 2. All right, so here's the approach we're going to take here. First of all, we talked about some of this last week, but we do need to get a JSON web token. We need to get this request signed because we are giving access to the client to be able to learn how many viewers there actually are. But we don't want to give our Mux API keys to the client. That would be bad news. We don't want to leak or give any more control or access to data than we intend here. So how we did this last week when we were implementing it is by using a function that we wrote called get viewer counts. And it looked just like this. It's a signing function that uses the Mux Node SDK to pass our live stream ID. And this is defining basically some of the parameters for what we're allowed to access and how long. In this case here, I have an expiration for this token of 1 year. Really, there's no reason why this token has to expire for our particular use case. So we can use it for a long-lived session here and then reuse that as we continue to go live and ask for these viewer counts over and over again. We can just reuse that same token on the client. So we have this method here. The only thing I changed from last time, I don't trust my typing live as much as I trust yours. So I'll paste this in here. But this caching, it's now wrapping and using that same method that Darius had described earlier, right? So when we make this call, it's going to cache it. And right now, it's caching it for, where did our revalidation figure code.
You know, I
here.
actually ditched that because
ditched
we've
it.
got the webhook revalidating. So we're going to
Perfect.
be
So it
generating
doesn't-
a new JWT every time the webhook calls.
So we don't want that, but we still do want revalidation here for this approach in some way.
You are running into a limitation of Next.js, I think, with third-party libraries, because both of these cache functions are in the same page. They have to revalidate together, basically. Yeah, you can't have
So the move
granular
here is to
revalidation
just
here.
have something in place that is going to revalidate because we have two cache functions on the same page. Is that right?
I mean, because yeah, you need somewhere to revalidate the page. Yeah.
So if we were
Yeah,
to do this
that'll work.
approach here, we're redefining the validate export, and then this figure here is 2 million seconds, which is a long time. I don't know how long is
It's
that?
about a month.
A month. Okay.
Yeah.
Darius lives on seconds. Don't let any
I looked
second
this
pass
up
you by.
earlier. I knew it would come up.
Cool. So what this will do is just make sure that we are going to reload this page. I mean, likely it will be handled by a webhook and revalidated prior to us actually hitting this limit, right? Unless Darius and I go on vacation together, in which case the revalidation will be handled by this value here, and that'll give us a new ID or a new status of the live stream and a new JSON web token for the viewer counts.
We're
All right.
refreshing the
Hopefully I didn't
data
lose.
every month unless the webhook refreshes it sooner.
That's right. See, Darius is a good sized person.
Paying
Okay,
attention.
good. So we have a viewers count token, and this is going to give us, like I said, access to the value that we're looking for here, which is how many people are actually watching this stream. So let's implement that part now, because we want to, like I said, constantly recheck what that value is going to be on the client. This is going to be implemented as a client component and not a server component. We're going to set an interval up that will reload that call, that request every 5-10 seconds, something like that, and handle all of that on the client side by using this particular token in that client component. So let's stop talking and start writing some more code. So I'm going to do a new file here, and what do we call this one? We'll call it like viewer count tsx, and we are going to, this, like I said, going to be a client component. So we want to start it off with a use client, and we just have some parts here that I'm going to import to make sure that we can use them within the implementation of this client component. But we're going to try to actually walk through this one step by step here. So just by opening up this component like you're used to with any other component, we can return, viewer count here, export default. And let's import it here at the top. Viewer count. Maybe I'll put it a little closer to the other concerns here. All right, so we got viewer count, and then maybe we could just render it here. I'll put it under the grid for now. Uh-oh. See my typing? I don't know.
Expected
About this
semicolon. Oh, you've got that parenthesis there at the end in line 8. Yeah.
You're great. You're great. All right, here we go.
There it goes.
View count. It's rendering. Okay. Next up, let's see about actually wiring up the call that we're looking for. So the first thing that this is going to need here, we have a token prop that we're passing, and it's expecting the token to be a string, and we're not actually sending this prop in anywhere just yet. So because we made this call to get the token here, and it's returning it from this function. Sorry, we haven't even actually called that yet. So let's call that here. Const viewer token equals 08. get viewer counts token. And now we should be able to see this viewer token. I'll just log this out here really quick. Yeah, and you can see it here down in the console that it's coming through, that token is getting generated, but look, we gotta make sure that this thing is working as expected to. So we will pass this token on to the client component as a prop. Token is viewer token. Save, save, oops. The saving in the browser is kind of interesting. And if we render it here, this should go right into the DOM, which we don't want, but just make sure that we're getting as expected. Okay, so what's next here? Well, we want to, we're going to expect that this value is going to change over time, right? So that's why we are importing this use state here at the top. Let's say that this value starts at 1. I say something hilarious, it goes viral on Twitter, and that bounces up to 20. Well, we need to update that value within the app, and we need to track that over time, right? So we're going to start that here by saying const, let's just say value, set value equals use state, and we'll start it off with a null value. And we also need to run this request to actually get that value up front. So I will do that in a loop that's happening right within use effect. So we'll open up the use effect here. And this is going to depend on 2 items. I like to get these dependencies out of the way up front just to make sure I don't forget about them. The first is that if that token changes, of course, then this effect should be reconsidered. And then the setter as well. Which this one actually always confused me. I never really felt like I needed to pass that there, but I always just do it just for safety. Do you know if you actually need to do that, Dar?
I know that it's never going to change, so you don't really need it there. I would put it there if my linter was yelling at me.
Yeah. Sounds like a good rule. So if I hit set value here of 1 and we render the value is going to be null when this client component first renders. But then this effect is going to run, it'll set the value to 1, and then that value gets propagated down to our page. So we're getting somewhere here, right? Let's actually make this a, I don't know, viewers. We can work on that here in a bit.
1 viewers.
1 viewers. That's how you talk. Actually, another approach that we can do to make sure that we handle that correctly would be to have a label value, right? Const label equals value is 1 viewer, and if not, viewers label. One viewer. There we go. All right, so what's next here? We probably want to get that fetch implementation going here. So to save some time, so we're running fast here. I promise that's the only reason. Fetch viewers. We have this implementation in place. So what is this doing? It's an async function that's defined right here within the use effect. And we are calling, you're using fetch to call the stats.mux.com API to ask for the counts for this particular live stream. And remember, when we generated this token, that is where we specify what is the live stream that we're actually looking to get counts, the metadata about, the number of views and viewers. So that information is located right within this token when it was generated. So we're getting the response. We are converting that to a JSON body, and then going to parse the viewer's value that's within that payload and set that value to our value up here in the state. So first things first, we need to actually call that function. So we can do fetch viewers. Okay. The saving is kind of funny. All right, and so my worst fears have been confirmed. The stream says we have zero
Aren't you a viewer?
viewers.
Because you've got it pulled up, don't you?
I
Hold on.
know there's got to be
Let me
something here.
let me
Maybe it
watch our
needs a
stream,
moment
Dave.
to get kicked back in, but we can also confirm here if I, well, I got my browser kind of special configured, but I am logging this data out to make sure that that value is coming through as expected. Here, let me just pop this open really quick. Some Sentry errors, but we do have views, viewers, and then there's this like, I feel like I got to run this past the product team. There's some kind of like timestamp issue going on here. So maybe there's something's not quite coming through just yet for this, but we'll give it a second. And we'll keep going here. So we have the viewers is being called, but then we also need to set this up on a timer, basically. Is that, hey, every 5 seconds, just like my kid asked me if I want to play blocks, we need to ask the stats, the MuxStats API for the latest information. So I'm going to set that up on an interval that runs every 5 seconds. So we'll do that here. Interval, set interval. This is a function we're calling. This is 5 seconds. And then the last thing we need to do is remember to remove that on dismount. So that is going to be clear interval. All right. How's that looking to you?
I think you did it.
I think we did it. All right. Oh, and we got a viewer. Look at that.
What? It's me. I'm the viewer. Luckily, this isn't counting our YouTube views or our viewers.
Yeah, you're right. YouTube is popping off right now, but our MuxTV dev page right now has got lower viewership. So at least we got this in place now. What else are we missing? We want to make sure that we handle the null case while this is still loading, so that we know if we have no value here in state, right when this component first mounts. We don't want to just show, like, let's actually see that in motion, right? If I hit reload here, we'll probably just see the label viewer, right? Because the viewers, and then it switches. That's not quite what we're looking for, is it, Darius?
I think we can do better, Dave.
I think we can do better than that. So what we can do, and here's just what I've handled as a basic implementation on my end, is simply check the value. And if it's null, then we do not want to return any sort of label that says we have any kind of viewers at this point. We should show some sort of loading state in place. So here's what the implementation I have for this. We're using that typography component so that this looks a little bit more on brand for the type that we use here on the page. If the value is null, we'll show just a loading state. And when we do actually have a value, then we show the value here with that label that we've defined earlier. So let's just do a quick reload here. We can see loading and then one viewer when we actually do have the values. Cool. I think that's working pretty well. The only thing that I want to update here is the placement of this thing. I'm wondering, first of all, we don't need to show a viewer count if the live stream is not active. So I can move that from here. And maybe we put it right under the player here. Let's see what that.
It's gonna look pretty funky considering that the actually I'm wrong. That might be okay. You'll have to probably surround that with
oh yeah, we need
there you go, React fragment.
Little doodads here.
There it goes.
Okay.
Nice. Looks pretty good.
Not bad. I mean, I'm no designer, but that's production ready, Tar. Ask me. Ship it. Let's go. Click the button. Okay. Hey, we got a lot that we've covered here today. So we talked about here this client implementation. There's really nothing too new in terms of the next part, other than it's important to specify that this is a client component, that what's happening here is happening on the client, and we separate that out into its own file that can be delineated as a client component. Other than that, this interval, set interval and clear interval implementation and approach is pretty much what I think you would be used to if you've done any sort of client-side fetching before. Looks good. Darius, how are you feeling about this next 10 minutes? Do you want to do some souping up of this page or what?
I have a couple ideas, Dave, of how we can make this just a little bit better. Some bonus content.
Bonus, if you stuck around.
Some stuff we can squeeze in towards the end.
What do you have in mind?
I think there's a couple of things we got to do. On the server side, we can make this page load just a little bit faster by fetching that JWT at the same time as we're fetching the live stream. So rather than fetching them one after the other, fetching them at the same time. And then when on the viewer count component itself, I think we can have, kind of really leverage Tailwind to have a slightly prettier loading state. Sound good?
That hurt my feelings, but yeah, we'll continue along that route.
I mean, loading ... is iconic.
Yeah.
But I think we can do better.
I'm following you here. Let's see what we come up with.
Cool. Okay, so let me tell you what's happening here. This is actually another really easy footgun of server components, and really any data fetching or asynchronous work done in JavaScript. If you have an async function, you can use await, and if you use await, or is it await? Let's say await. Then you can wait for a function to resolve before moving on with your code. However, what are we doing here? We're executing this, and then we're waiting for it to resolve before doing this. These two data fetches don't really have anything to do with each other, so we can actually run them at the same time. To do that, let's, instead of getting live stream, let's just get the live stream promise. Viewer token promise. So because I'm not using await, this fires off, and then this immediately fires off. And then we still need to wait for that response, but we can say live stream viewer token equals promise.all. Promise.all says, hey, wait and tell me when all of these are done. Live stream promise and viewer token promise. It's just a little performance optimization, but you really got to remember to do this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're going to run into these huge like waterfall dependencies and everything. Just definitely a nice little performance optimization there. Kick off the promises and then wait for them to resolve. Page still work? Page still works. Sick. The second thing I wanted to do, I love your loading state, Dave. I do. I think we can do a little bit better with Tailwind. I'm going to say if true here to make sure your loading state always shows up. We've got loading there. I kind of want this to show up at the end of the div. Yeah. The reason I want it to show up at the end of the div is because I kind of want the width to change a little bit and some stuff to line up. So but as the width changes, I don't want like the text to change up. I'll explain here in a sec. I'll have better words soon. To do that, what can we use? Maybe full text right. Flip my loading text to the right. Oh my gosh. Y'all hired me to do professional CSS. I can't do professional CSS.
This is like a live code interview.
I don't know what I'm doing without Flexbox. So what I'm going to do here. Item center, justify end. I'm going to stick it down here. Are you kidding me?
Uh-oh.
I got too fancy.
Do we need to wait that or no?
Yeah, we definitely do. Thank you. Nice. Thanks, Dave. Cool. Back to where we were. Now, the reason I moved this into its own little container and moved it to the end is because I want a little loading state that looks like this. And then while it's loading, it kind of looks like this. And then as soon as we get actual numbers, it'll switch to this. And the word viewer or viewers will line up between the two, line up between the loading state and the loaded state. I also I also want to make clear that this isn't an actual number. I get that minuses are unambiguous, but we can make it unambiguouser. That is a real word. I looked it up this morning in the dictionary. Why? To do that, I'm going to use a little bit of style. Class name equals maybe text gray. And then I kind of really, maybe text gray dark. I kind of really want to make clear that something's happening here, that it's not just like frozen or something. And for that, I'm going to use maybe like animate pulse. Yeah, and this is a Tailwind class that kind of, yeah, you can see fades it in and out. Let's make it a little bit more clear with some slightly bigger characters, maybe. Yeah, there we go. See, it's kind of pulsing, kind of loading, and value equals null. It's not perfect because we still only got one viewer, but let's assume we've got more. and we'd have a really nice, oh, I lost it again. Really nice loading animation. Bam. Looks like that. Cool.
That looks good. It does have me ambitious to fill up the 4 concurrent digits there.
We'll be there in no time, Dave, I promise.
I think so. We have to grind sometimes. What's going on with your VS Code? Is it doing okay? Looks unhealthy.
I used the wrong keyboard shortcut again. Disconnected from the session. Oh, we're back. We're back. Nice. Cool. I've got 4 minutes, Dave. I kind of want to do a little bit more. What do you say?
Speed run.
Speed run. I had a thought. What if we use like a little animation to show as the viewers changed? So it doesn't just snap from 1 to 1,000 because we're about to have 1,000 viewers. To have like maybe like a little spring animation. I think we could use some random numbers to simulate our viewers really changing. This, because I've got fetch viewers here, it's still going to run every 5 seconds. So we're going to have, yeah, there we go. I'm going to make it faster. Okay, you can see our number of viewers is changing constantly, and I think we can be a little bit prettier than that. So for that, I'm going to reach for one of my favorite animation libraries, yarn add react spring /web. And React Spring, it's exactly what it sounds like. It simulates numbers as springs. Springs in the context of animation, it's just stuff that slides really naturally from one state to another state. The reason I reached for it here, hopefully will become apparent very soon. Restart the server, and now that I have React Spring, I can import animated and use Spring from React Spring /web. I love these little bits of polish. It's really what makes your website just feel like lickable, which is a weird word to use for a website, but it works in my head, I promise. And I'm going to make a component called
ready to lick.
I'm going to make a component called animated number. It's going to take a number, go figure. It's going to return set value like that. But like I said, we want to use React Spring. React Spring, const props. We can go into more detail on this in another live stream if we've got enough interest. I'm just going to speed run it. Use Spring and explain what's going on here. Value from value 0. Nice. So what's going on here? Use Spring. Whenever value changes, spring to that value. At the very beginning, start at 0. So from 0, spring to whatever value that gets passed into this. And if we actually want to show the sprung value, we've got to use this little props thing. So props.value. And React Spring is optimized for like DOM animations. So we need to tell it, don't do a DOM animation. Give me the number exactly. This function to fixed so that we don't have any like floating point numbers, any fractions. Last thing I'm going to do is use animated span because React Spring is more optimized to work with animated span. Whoa, that was a lot of information.
I think I follow you here though. So we're taking a number, we're passing it in, and this is just handling all the calculation between what that number was, where that number is going, and then yeah, I guess we're gonna see something happen here between or to kind of span that gap of those difference in numbers, huh?
Exactly. A nice little bit of polish. Now I had to restart the server, so I've got to refresh the page over there on the right. Starts at 0. Do you see how that number kind of slides up and down? Oh, I love React Spring. My all-time favorite animation library. You'll find springs in most animation libraries you use. You really got to look for them. They're worth the effort. All right, Dave, that's all I got.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of just how Spring physics work in general. Numbers are an interesting place to play around with them. I think even visually, we could probably do some really fun stuff with like, yeah, how can we implement some of that approach into, I don't know, video production in general and moving stuff around on the page. I think you've done some of these Easter eggs as well. Maybe not in the mux.com repo, but elsewhere. So maybe we can
Keep your
talk
eyes
through some
peeled.
of that
I
at
love
some point.
springs.
I love springs too. That transition just looked like a spring as well on screen.
Probably was.
And I'm ready to eat some spring rolls. I am about to pass out over here. So we covered a lot here today. Yeah, like a bowl of spring rolls. We covered a lot. We covered data fetching on the server, revalidation, webhooks. Goodness, client side requests. You fixed some of my code. I fixed some of yours. It feels pretty good. It feels like a good show. We went through a lot here. So had a lot of fun. I think we will try to chapterize this and make some of this data a little bit more easy to find because we cover a lot throughout the stream. So see what we can come up with. In the meantime, if you have ideas for what you want to see on a future stream, leave a note, leave a comment, send us an email. I'm Dave Kiss on Twitter, X. Darius, you can find him that way as well, or send us an email. I'm dave@mux.com. Until next time, did we ever figure out what our sign off was? I think last time it was just a friendly goodbye.
A friendly goodbye.
A friendly goodbye, everybody.